Hi there and welcome back to another book review. Today I'm talking about Nowhere Like Home by Sara Shepard. If you're thinking about checking out Nowhere Like Home for yourself, you don't have to worry about spoilers in this video. The first part of my videos are always spoiler free, so you can see if this book is your cup of tea. After a quick summary and a basic review, I'll do a deep dive into my thoughts and opinions on the book. Real quick, these are some content warnings for Nowhere Like Home by Sara Shepard. In Nowhere Like Home, Lena, our main character, arrives on a mothers and children only commune in the desert of Arizona. She's there to reconnect with an old work friend and work through some of her issues from the past. But the longer she's in the community, the more that she starts to feel uneasy about the people around her. Nowhere Like Home features the ultra secluded and isolated vibe that you can find in a lot of thrillers. This book also has very strong themes of pregnancy and motherhood, so if those topics might be triggering for you, it may be a good idea to avoid this one. Before I give you my rating for Nowhere Like Home, let's do a quick run through of my rating system. 1 star means that I could not finish the book. 2 stars means that I struggled to finish it, but I did. 3 stars means it was good, I liked it. 4 stars means I really liked it and I would recommend it to a friend. And 5 stars, which is my highest honor, means I would read the book again. I gave Nowhere Like Home a 3-star rating because I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't recommend it to a friend or read it again. There were some moments in the story that I started to feel more invested, but overall I felt the pacing was a little too slow and some of the characters were a little too flat for me to really enjoy it. If you read Nowhere Like Home and you really liked it, you may also like She Started It by Sean Gilbert, The Villa by Rachel Hawkins, or Only If You're Lucky by Stacey William. We are now entering the spoiler-filled part of this video. If Nowhere Like Home sounds like your cup of tea, now is a great time to click away from the video, go read it, and then come back to see if you agree with my thoughts and opinions. If you like the sound of this book but you don't want to read it yourself, you don't have to worry because I will give you the full rundown. Nowhere Like Home opens to a panicked Lena in the airport with her baby Jason, who won't stop crying. Jason has been a big crier since he was born, and it's caused a lot of problems with Lena and her husband. The constant crying has started to convince Lena that she's a bad mom and has led her to accept an invitation from Rhiannon, her old friend, to come visit the Mommune. This community is out in the middle of the Arizona desert, and Lena agrees to go despite this because she wants to work through some of the things that happened with her and Rhiannon in the past. The taxi driver even shows some hesitation at taking Lena out to the meetup spot. She pushes through this weirdness and gets into Rhiannon's SUV. Rhiannon takes Lena back to the property where Lena is starting to get introduced to all of the different women who live there. As Lena is becoming a little more unsettled in this community, we learn a little bit more of the backstory between her and Rhiannon. Lena and Rhiannon met back in LA where they became very fast friends, to the point where Rhiannon even got Lena a job at the magazine where she worked. During the beginning of their friendship, a woman named Jillian started to show some interest in the two and even approached them multiple times, trying to see if they might all be able to become friends. Jillian had an Instagram where she would post her feelings about her social anxiety and detail the stuff going on in her life. On her Instagram, she even expressed her interest in becoming friends with Rhiannon and Lena, naming them with R and L. Rhiannon doesn't like Jillian and finds her to be kind of weird and off-putting, and we start to see why as Jillian exhibits some stalker-esque behaviors. One day when Jillian approaches Rhiannon about becoming friends, Rhiannon straight up rejects her, saying that it will never happen, not with her or with Lena. When Rhiannon has to leave work suddenly to go take care of a problem, Jillian is able to become closer with Lena, convincing Lena that Rhiannon was always a toxic friend. Jillian also talked a lot about her roommate Sadie, who was going through IVF and attempting to get pregnant on her own. On her Instagram, Jillian talked about how Sadie behaved violently toward her and talked about how she felt like she was being forced out of her living situation. Jillian continues to act more weird and possessive over Lena, and it eventually gets to the point where Lena finds out Jillian was sending text messages from her phone, and specifically sent one to Rhiannon telling her to lose the number. Lena is understandably very furious with Jillian and confronts her while she's on a jog. The two of them are right near a cliff and they begin to have a little bit of a scuffle, and then Lena blacks out and wakes up on a park bench, not knowing what happened but having a suspicion that she may have just pushed Jillian over the edge. Lena carries on with her life after this, just kind of having this idea that she's a murderer in the back of her head, and it makes her very guilty and makes it difficult for her to live her life. She meets her husband and has her baby, but throughout that whole time, she can't shake that feeling of guilt. A little while after Jillian fell, the police were looking into it and trying to figure out what had happened, and even suspected Sadie, the housemate, of being involved for a time, but then they eventually let it go and just ruled it as an accident. After getting this background information, we go back to the community where Lena is becoming more and more uncomfortable. When a woman who was referred to as Sarah and was off at a doctor's appointment returns to the community, Lena realizes that Sarah is actually Sadie, and Lena starts starts to suspect that Rhiannon has dragged her here to get some revenge for the past or to show what Lena did. When Lena goes to Rhiannon about this, Rhiannon swears she had no idea about the history between the two, and she promises that she'll get Lena out of there. But when Lena goes to meet with Rhiannon so that she can get off the property, she finds Sara instead, who is asking her what she's doing there and is just as equally suspicious. After talking it out, they realize that neither of them had come there on purpose looking for the other, and Sara even admits that she was actually the one who pushed Jillian over the edge after she hit Lena with a stick and made her pass out. Then Sarah's the one who dragged her up onto the bench and fled the scene. The reason Sara did this is because she overheard Lena and Jillian arguing and overheard a part where Jillian may or may not have been messing with her IVF medications, which could have been part of the reason why she struggled so much with getting pregnant. During this time, we get a little bit more information on Rhiannon and learn that the reason why she had to leave work so suddenly is because her mom was pregnant and was planning on giving up the baby. When Rhiannon resists this idea, her mom is upset about it, but Rhiannon eventually ends up going with her mom to the hospital when she has the baby. But when she comes back, her mom has disappeared and the baby is left there by himself. Rhiannon makes a snap judgment, takes the baby and leaves the hospital, but since that point had been worried that someone was going to accuse her of kidnapping the baby. And that's why she sought out the community. Sara and Lena realize that Rhiannon is missing since she never came to meet up with Lena, and the two of them decide they are going to find her no matter what the other people in the community are saying. They end up climbing a nearby landmass to try and get some phone signal, and while they're up there, they are confronted by another member of the community named Coral. Coral reveals herself to be Jillian's daughter, a baby that Jillian had when she was really young and then gave up for adoption. Coral explains that she had wanted to meet her birth mom, but that she wasn't able to because of what Sara and Lena did. Coral is the one who has been controlling everything and plotting her revenge by bringing Lena and Sara into the community after Rhiannon had already joined. To enact her revenge, Coral ties the three women up in a cave and puts explosives all around them, explaining that her big plan is to blow them all up. Luckily, another teen from the community who is friends with Coral shows up at the last minute with a gun. Coral is shot and they're all able to escape the explosives, but the teen claims that she never actually fired her gun. The community dissolves after this, after a lot of secrets come out, like the leader having used all of the money in the joint account to pay off her own personal debts. Lena returns to her husband and is completely honest with him about her history, which allows them to have a stronger relationship going forward. At the end of the book, Lena is left to wonder if Jillian actually died when she went off the side of the cliff, or if it's possible that she's still out there somewhere, and potentially she could have been the person to shoot Coral and save the people that she wanted so badly to be friends with. Now that you know what happens in Nowhere Like Home, let's get into some of my thoughts and opinions on this book. Nowhere Like Home is by Sara Shepard, who is the author of the popular series Pretty Little Liars. I personally have not read these books, nor have I seen the TV show, but I do know that it's super popular, and I understand the general vibe of the show with revenge and secrets and crazy twists happening, and I feel like this book definitely falls within that general scope. I think that it's a very common choice for thriller writers to make their setting somewhere that's isolated, like the middle of the desert or an island or somewhere underground. I think the reason why this is so common is because it helps to naturally raise the stakes a little bit and make things a little more panicky than they would be if the thriller was taking place in a house in a crowded suburban area with a police station nearby. I don't think that this decision automatically discounts a thriller from being interesting, but I do think sometimes when books are in settings like this, it tends to rely on that for a lot of the tension, and what can often happen, and what I think happened in the case of Nowhere Like Home, the setting and the plot tend to overtake the characters, and I think that because of that, we don't see much character development or even characterization at all from most of the women in this book. One thing that I did enjoy is that the community itself is not what turned out to be sinister, and rather it was just one individual person doing these bad things. And as the community dissolves, we see that it's just plain old human error and bad decisions that make it not a great place to live, and not that it's like a murderous, controlling cult. While I enjoyed the setting of the desert and what it had to provide, I also think that the setting combined with the just sheer number of characters in this one made it really difficult to have solid characterization in place. I think the biggest example of the lack of characterization we see in this book comes in the form of Coral, who is almost a caricature of a villain. Her final plan even is to tie the women up and place explosives around them, which almost seems to come directly from a cartoon. Her motivations are pretty weak. She just explains that she wanted to meet her birth mom, and then when she found out she couldn't, she wanted to get back at the people who had potentially killed her, it was not a very strong reason for her to go to such lengths to get back at them. While on one hand, I think we can see Coral's behavior as an extension of Jillian's, I also think that this book really would have benefited from a more nuanced antagonist. And like I said earlier in my brief review, I also think that this book struggled from some issues with pacing. There were lots of moments where I kind of just wanted to put the book down because it's hard to stay invested when things are moving along sluggishly and you don't have characters to hold on to as a reason to keep reading. There were a lot of things in this book that made me suspend my disbelief. Among those obviously is Coral's entire architecture as an antagonist, but also with Lena and her husband and their dynamic, especially after she leaves with their baby, doesn't communicate and then comes back after almost being killed. I think that the book brushed over that very quickly, and it feels almost unbelievable that somebody would be so forgiving as to act like it had never even happened at all. All in all, I did think this was a perfectly decent thriller, and I gave it 3 stars out of 5. This story really would have benefited from some more character development, but if you are looking for a thriller with a whole cast of women, this one might be right for you. I really enjoyed the idea of the commune being at the center of this, and I also really did enjoy the fact that the commune didn't turn out to be the primary sinister element in this story. As always, you can follow me on Goodreads or Instagram to see more about what I'm reading now and what I plan to read next. If you're interested in any of the books I mentioned in this video, you can find links to them in the description. Thanks for watching.